Welcome back, guys. And we are now in chapter 24. This is World War II, the Second World War. And I know as we go through this, this is one of those topics that everyone has their favorite aspect of it, whether it's aviation or it's the war in the Pacific or war in in Europe or one particular battle or one particular general. I'm not going to get into any of those details. I don't have time. So this is a survey, hopefully under 15 minutes, to take a look at the global conflict that not only is going to reshape international relations, but also transform the lives of millions of Americans. So let's dive into this and see how much we can cover in a very short time. Now, the Second World War is going to be rooted in unresolved issues from World War I and also the Great Depression. I had a professor in college that at one point that said that World War II was simply the second half of a game with a 20-year intermission. So first half of the game, World War I. Second half, World War II, 20-year halftime. And so I think there might be some fact to that. We still are dealing with issues that didn't get dealt with at the end of the First World War. Benito Mussolini, for example, who rises in Italy and establishes fascism there. Adolf Hitler in Germany, who has a real issue with the way Germany was treated at the end of the Great War. These are both, and others, going to create volatile political climates. And meanwhile, Japan's aggressive expansion in Asia is going to pose a threat to peace as well. In fact, you want to get into some pretty deep stuff. Go back to my video on World War I, and I mentioned the Zimmerman telegram. While we didn't talk about the text of it, go read what the telegram says. Japan is in that document. So things are going way, way back, even 20 years and 30 years farther back. The groundwork is being laid right here. Now, in September of 1939, Germany invades Poland. And this is going to prompt Britain and France to declare war upon Germany. And the conflict is going to quickly escalate. It's going to engulf much of Europe and Asia as the Axis powers, as we're going to call the Italy, Germany, and Japanese alliance, or the Rome, Berlin, Tokyo axis, they're going to seek to expand their empires. Now, initially, the United States wants to remain neutral. We had tried this in the First World War. It didn't work. But neutrality is going to drastically change after the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. And this surprise attack is going to lead to the U.S. declaring war on Japan, and shortly after, Germany and Italy will declare war upon the United States. Now, I will tell you that we were more prepared for this war than we were for World War I. When we enter into World War I in 1941, after we declare war on December the 8th, our factories are already moving. We're already producing weapons of war because we are supplying those to our friends across the pond, Great Britain. Because by the time we reach late 1940, Britain is pretty much standing alone. Russia is staying out of it. They're not involved in this just yet. France has been swept over by the German war machine. And so what are we doing? We're supplying the British with weapons while remaining neutral as far as boots on the ground. So when we do enter, our factories are already making weapons and vehicles and supplies, and we're doing this at an unprecedented rate. The economy will surge and unemployment's going to drop as millions of Americans go to work. In fact, this is the only time in history that we have a peacetime draft. Well, what exactly does a peacetime draft mean? It means that before we ever declare war, we're building up our military personnel. And of course, then after Pearl Harbor, then people start to volunteer in this wartime army. Now, the war effort's going to bring about significant social changes at home, just like the First World War had done. Women are going to enter the workforce in record numbers, and jobs that they are taking had traditionally been held by men. Women are going to go into factories. They're going to be welding. There's an iconic image of a woman with a rivet gun, and she's in her coveralls, and she's got her arm up like that, and she says, "We can do it." That's Rosie the Riveter, and she becomes a symbol of female empowerment and contribution to the war effort. We see the same thing happen with African Americans, right? They're working in these factories also, and we see an increasing number of black men going off to war in this Second World War as well. So World War II is going to accelerate the civil rights movement. African Americans, again, serving in the military, but they're facing segregation and discrimination. We are still a segregated army. And that will change in the Korean War when we have President, I lost his name, Harry Truman. And Harry Truman's going to start to integrate the American military and American government as well. That's pretty important too. But talking about the civil rights movement or the origins of the civil rights movement in the 1940s, we have this thing called the Double V campaign and a labor leader by the name of A. Philip Randolph. Now, Randolph is going to advocate for victory against fascism and Hitler's racism abroad, but also racial injustice back here at home. And this is going to lay the groundwork for future civil rights advancements like the Montgomery bus boycott and Martin Luther King Jr. and various other groups like SNCC and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, and some of those things that we'll see farther down the road in future chapters. Now, on the battlefield, the United States is playing a crucial role in several key campaigns once we actually get mobilized in this. And the idea of defeating Hitler first is that becomes the key priority. The D-Day invasion of Normandy in June 1944, this is a pivotal moment that leads to the liberation of Western Europe under Nazi control. It begins to force the Nazis and the German war machine out of France, which will now be liberated. Earlier in the war, we're going to see fights across North Africa, which again defeats the Axis forces in the deserts of Northern Africa and Egypt, and even over in the Middle East. In the Pacific, American forces are going to fight fiercely against Japanese troops in island hopping campaigns. You don't have to conquer them all. You just got to get the key ones. And so we see that with generals like Texan, Admiral Chester Nimitz and his Navy, and Douglas MacArthur, who had fought, both the men had fought during the First World War. But finally, the war is going to conclude with the surrender of Germany in May the 7th of 1945. And then 3 months later, the United States, after the culmination of the Manhattan Project, the development of atomic weaponry and atomic bomb, we're going to drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, areas that did have a significant civilian population, but also had a significant military population as well. And Japan didn't have a word for surrender in their vocabulary. And so what does this do? It ends the war quickly. If Americans had to invade the Japanese islands, there were some reports that we would be talking about 500,000 to 1 million American body bags if we had to invade those islands by foot. Dropping those bombs keeps us from having to do that. And we can question the morality of it. Was it right or was it wrong? But again, the idea of presentism. I don't know that if you're in the president's shoes, do you choose to drop 2 bombs and not send in troops and have to write many, many letters to the families of fallen soldiers, or do you send in those soldiers to hopefully win a battle, but at great personal cost? That's a moral question that I am not willing to tackle. Maybe you're willing to, and that's entirely up to you. But as the war ends after the final surrender of Japan, and we could get into a lot more details, right? The entire courses in college are taught over this subject. We could talk about the role of Russia in this. We can talk about Russia, how they begin to exert their control over Europe, and we'll do that in future chapters. But they're also trying to do that over Japan. They said, we'll help you defeat Japan. Well, do we want to defeat Japan before Russia has that chance? Because they're seizing up land where they can. So again, a lot of details. I'm not talking about all of it, but dig deeper if this is something that interests you. Now, the aftermath of World War II is going to reshape global politics. And the United States is going to emerge as a superpower that's going to play a leading role in establishing a new United Nations, because the old League of Nations had failed. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. It collapsed in on itself when the United States didn't join it. We're trying to promote international cooperation and prevent future conflicts with this new United Nation, which will be based in New York, but it's going to be a world assembly. And maybe I'll do another video later on discussing basically the details of the of the United Nations. Maybe I'll do that after we get these videos here filmed and out there to you, which you'll need for studying on your exams and so on and so forth. Now, once the war is over, our troops begin to come back home. And these returning veterans are going to benefit from a series of government programs, one of which is called the GI Bill. Now, the GI Bill, or I think it's the Soldier's Bill of Rights or the Serviceman's Bill of Rights, it's going to provide education and housing and assistance. It's going to contribute to a post-war economic boom. And this period is going to mark the beginning of American middle class. The American middle class. You can borrow money. You can buy yourself an inexpensive home to raise a family in the suburbs. You can go back to college with money that you are receiving, or it's no interest or low interest loans from the government. You can go and build yourself a career, get your education, move into the workforce at a much younger age than maybe you could before. Maybe get married younger, and many of them do, and they start to have children. The largest generation in American history is called the baby boom. It results from this post-war economic boom, and much of it is fueled by the GI Bill. And another interesting fact is, because of the GI Bill, and you've got soldiers looking for educational opportunities, we see an explosion of small community colleges all over the place. Many of the ones in Central Texas where I live were established post-World War II to give the opportunities to these veterans, these soldiers that were returning home looking for a way to get their education, start to build their lives, and get back to the community once the war was over. So that wraps up our discussion of Chapter 24. So we're halfway through a 1302 course through this information. World War II is a monumental event, and it's not only going to alter, or not only did it alter the course of history, but also it has lasting effects on American society. So we see significant changes in the home front. We see the establishment of the U.S. as a global superpower, because all the this war and World War I have seen the destruction of empire throughout the world. In fact, it's in 1947, just as this is wrapping up, that we tell the Philippines, hey, you're on your own. They get their independence. We had sort of bought them or had acquired them back during the Spanish-American War of 1898. Well, we really aren't interested in this anymore. And so we start to cut ties with some of those. And so again, that idea of the end of colonialism around the world. So there are many, many things that could be pointed at as the legacy of World War II, but it's going to continue to influence us today. And this is kind of where we are with this. Now, again, a lot of details I didn't get into. There's not enough time trying to keep these under 15 minutes. But this is going to be one of those subjects that you have a lot of knowledge on in very, I would say, very focused areas. So try to understand the overall arching area, tie it into what you know. And if there's anything else that you want to reach out to me, and we can have a conversation. All right, guys, thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Good luck on your tests.